Thanks for staying with us. On this segment, we'll be commemorating Down Syndrome Month. Joining us on the show is a special needs advocacy expert and parent of a Down syndrome child, Tonye Faloughi-Ekezi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you. You can join the conversation again on 081-0764-1679, 0902-416-3440. You can also send us tweets on X and send us messages on YouTube. It's so great to have you here because, I mean, before you came in, we discussed stuttering, and you know, these are also issues that that kids, some children go through. And we know that Down syndrome also is an important state of being that lots of children are involved with, and parents, they feel ill-equipped to help these children in this. So let us come to you on why you started this advocacy and how you've been handling it since you have a child.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. This is like a bucket list, so take that along today. No, you're doing a great job on this show, and my husband and I are fans, so it's great to be here. But I'm actually a parent of a girl with Down syndrome, and that's really why I'm here, right? So it's through my own experience in raising her and struggling, seriously struggling, and realizing that, okay, what is out there? What is her life going to be like? Because you have this child and you're told, I'm sorry, your child has Down syndrome. You know, most mothers are given the diagnosis at birth. So imagine you've pushed this baby, your most vulnerable point, your most vulnerable, and someone comes to you and says, I'm sorry, your child has Down syndrome. Rather than not, they should be saying congratulations for your beautiful baby boy, baby girl who has Down syndrome. It's just the slightest change, but puts parents on a different path. You get told what your child won't be able to do. Your child will not walk. Your child will not talk. Your child won't go to school. Your child can't do this. So people are already speaking negatives into your child's future. And I'm flipping that. Because for parents with Down syndrome, it's an absolute joy and a blessing to have a child with Down syndrome. They're not always happy. They're like everybody else, have your good days or your bad days, but they're born with a capacity for love that is just beyond anything I've ever known. And so for my daughter Simone, when she walks into a room, she lights up the place. You know now. She lights up everyone. She greets everyone. And that person that's just scowling suddenly is overcome with light. So it's a real blessing. It's a challenge, yes, but it's a huge blessing, more than a challenge.
Even for parents with normal babies, as I would not that they are abnormal, there's a fear of what the world would do to your baby. You know, babies are vulnerable, they're your loved ones. And you're wondering how will the next person, if I close my eyes, if I were to sleep and close my eyes, how even will my sister, you know, take care of my baby? Not to talk of, you know, when you have a baby with special needs. How do you see schooling for her? How do you see socializing for her?
Interaction.
You know, how does she bond with her cousins?
So when a child is born with Down syndrome, the first and most important advocate is the family, is the parents. You know, and unfortunately in our culture, it's difficult because of traditions, about myths. People think, oh, you must have done something, your village people have cursed you, something like that. That's all nonsense, absolute nonsense. So it's about your advocacy for your child before they can advocate for yourself. They have a right to go to school. They have a right for equality, equanimity, and not only for them to have a seat at the table, but for them to have the ability to voice what they need and have a right that every other child, every other adult has, because they can be responsible, they can marry, they can have children, they can have careers and be upstanding, contributing members to society. So if early on you have the attitude of can, okay, you might not have the ability to be financially there to pay for speech and language pathologists, right? But we're in a day and age where we have a lot of access to information on the internet, on YouTube. You can go on these platforms, you can find what you need, and it's everyday work. Everybody's working, everybody's struggling in this economy. But 5-10 minutes consistently every day walking with your child can make a difference. Early intervention is key. Early interventions are the years from 0 to 5, 0 to 6, and that's when the brain is most spongy. It can absorb the most information. You do most of your learning at that time. Doesn't mean you don't learn afterwards. You still do. And children's brains are still very spongy. But in terms of I don't want to say deficit, but the hard work that you have to put in, because they do not have the normal milestones. They do not sit up by 6 months, or they cannot raise their neck. So you have to do that work. It's like going to the gym and working the muscles, right? So we have to help them work those muscles in fine motor skills, which is, your small skills with your hands, in gross motor skills, which is your big muscles, in working these muscles, speech and language. Play is their friend. All children, whether they have Down syndrome or not, must play. Play is one of the strongest learning tools for children. So when you see a child, after 1 minute, the child is shifting, and you're like, can't you sit still? They actually cannot sit still because their brain are building the neural pathways.
Yeah.
And so that repetition, you're like, why are they saying this thing 20 times? But it's because of the importance of that to building the brain structure.
So, Tonye, I love that you are a voice for, children with Down syndrome, and also parents who are mothering these children. Because the truth is, before I met you, a few years, especially when we were growing up, we have family members or friends who had children or siblings who were living with Down syndrome, and we knew that these were the children that they put away. They would hide, and there was always a sense of shame because they had that child. And sometimes there's this particular family friend of ours who had a sibling. I'd never known about this sibling, and one day I walk into their house unannounced and I see this sibling. It was obvious, of course, because there's some features, and I could see my friend. I felt that ended our friendship. It was like you saw this part of our family that no one is allowed to see. And I felt like, growing now older in hindsight, I'm like, it's because they did not have the tools. They didn't know what to do. But then I see your daughter and I'm like, what did you learn? When did you learn it? What are the things? Can you just, because I know that there's so many people watching right now and they have just been told, I'm sorry that your child has Down syndrome, and they're thinking, then this is the end of my life. But I've seen what you've done with Simone. She's such an amazing child. What did you do, and how, because some people, as you said, financial issues, and like, what can we hear from you to help us raise our child that we have just been given?
I think the first message to anybody, especially those who have just got this huge diagnosis, right, is it's not the end of the world. That's the first thing. It's not the end of the world. Like every child, they need love. For me, I didn't get the diagnosis until she was 4.5 months. Wow. So we'd already bonded. I had it in the US, they missed it in the US. We passed through the UK, because I'm a Brit also. They missed it in Britain. It was our Nigerian doctors that actually diagnosed her. So me, I don't play with Nigerian doctors, because if not for Nigerian doctors, my daughter would not be alive today. Because after that, you have an echocardiogram, because about 40 to 60% of babies with Down syndrome are born with a cardiac defect, right? A congenital heart defect. And hers was like the worst. And because of that delay, she was in heart failure. They gave her 6 months to live. So first, before we could even think about dealing with the Down syndrome, we had to deal with the heart problem and keep her alive. So 3 years I was out with her. My son and husband was here. But 3 years, it was hard, but she was there. So when we came back, reunited as a family, I really went through a bad depression. I think I hadn't really thought about it, hadn't really dealt about it, but also because I had a great career before, and then I went into kind of saving her, mum mode, and then suddenly that's gone, everything is fine, and kids are doing their thing, she's settled, her brother's settled, well, everybody, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What's this? Existential crisis, full on. And then I just wrote a story about a conversation that my son and I had, where he couldn't understand why these quote-unquote people who come to the house to play with Simone that they won't let him also join. And then I explained, oh, okay, he was about 5 at the time. I have to explain to a toddler what Down syndrome is, okay. Your sister has something called Down syndrome. These people that come are play therapists, they're therapists. What's Down syndrome? Okay, Down syndrome is when you have an extra chromosome. What's a chromosome? So I did a terrible job. But from that, I began to write the story of that conversation, how I wished it went. And that is what changed everything. That gave me a kind of a catharsis and a journey and a realization that I'm not the only one going through this, and that other people needed help as well. So it was a friend of mine, she's an actress, Missy Molu, who also has a son with Down syndrome, who encouraged me to publish. But I hit a lot of challenges, I hit a lot of prejudice. Publishers didn't just reject me, they rejected me with full chest and wickedness, saying that I should be ashamed of myself for doing children's book like this. Which sane parent is going to buy this for their child? But lo and behold, I'm on my 5th book now. I have a publisher. We're out, new book.
Yeah, because I was really...
So it's based on my kids. Because I felt that, okay, children are really open, right? So when my daughter was going to her first school, the children were interested. And I realized these kids love my daughter, they love my son. My son's always popular wherever he goes. But you're never quite sure what is going to happen with that child that is different. And because it's Down syndrome and she looks different, what is that going to reception? But I find that everywhere she goes, she's really popular. So our stories are universal. So I wanted to create a universal story, number one, that features a black family. We're not animals. We're not featured as animals. We're featured as a typical Nigerian family, which is rare to see a black family. And my books are the first with a black main character with Down syndrome worldwide. And that's what set us on this journey, the Ugo and Simpson books. And then came, okay, I suppose I should probably do a foundation or a platform. But I didn't want to do, there's people doing great work already. There's Down Syndrome Foundation Nigeria. There's more Rainbow Foundation Nigeria who focus on Down syndrome, and they have their locations. But the power of storytelling is amazing. And I thought, okay, if I can create these stories, target market is children. Children will do the advocacy work for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Let
me ask you a question. So I know that with kids with Down syndrome, most of they always have special skill sets. So how were you able to pinpoint, to discover what was Simpson's special skill set and to build on it, and know how can parents, that have that mothering or parenting kids like that, be able to identify what their kids are good at and hone those skills?
I think like any other child, you have to allow your child to be exposed to different things and try different things. My focus has been on what can I get her to do that will help her with her speech and language, or with social skills, or with her fine motor skills. A couple of years ago, I started her with art. The founder of Chocolate City, Paul Okeugo, has a son with autism, and his wife is a very strong advocate. And I noticed that art was really their thing. So they encouraged me. They said, try art. I said, yes, actually, because it will help her with all the movement needed for handwriting. And this girl just took to it. Wow. And now she's a signed artist with the Children's Art Gallery. Wow. If people want to buy her paintings, she's collaborated with my sister, who's an artist, on these lamps that she paints. And really, I just need to allow her to grow, to find her way, to encourage her and challenge her at the same time. I think with these children, we tend to be like, oh, they've got Down syndrome, they can't do that. No, challenge them, push them, work with them every day, get to know your child so you can know their strengths, because it's in their strengths that you can find those things.
We were talking this morning about some parents overcompensating in children, in raising their kids.
Yeah.
I have a blind friend, and he used to say that his mom never sent him. He went to normal school. She will tell him, take your money, make sure you get, and she made sure he survived. He's in his 40s now. And so he's learned to cope. How do you train, how are you planning to raise her to
Be independent.
take a BRT, for instance? go out, how to deal with the bullies if they do come, how to help herself do her bath, do normal life.
So that's a really great question, and it's a question that's so important. Number one is that I never hide her, to begin with, right? You'd be shocked that she's the first black person with Down syndrome I ever saw. I didn't know black people got Down syndrome. So number one is I'm never ashamed. I wear it as a badge of honor. So the world must make space for her. They must. And I'm there to make sure that they do. Number one, she knows she's fine.
She's a pretty one.
She's very pretty and she knows it. So confidence. So she will try to manipulate you. And you have to let her know, no, me, I'm the Margaret Thatcher here. You listen to what I have to say. But her confidence in herself, and she wants to put confidence in other people. So she goes to a neurotypical school now, although I pulled her out of a neurotypical school.
What does that mean?
School. Okay, so it's a normal school. I stay away from the use of normal, because what is normal? I know I'm not normal, So it's standardized, neurotypical versus neurodivergent. But we truly live in a neurodiverse world, right? None of us here have the same brain. So in that difference, we're all neurodiverse. So our world is neurodiverse. And so we need to kind of widen that scope. But just because you send your child to a normal school, quote unquote, doesn't mean you should take your eyes off the ball.
Good.
We have this tendency here in Nigeria to say, you've handed your child over to the nanny. You've handed them over to the school. My work is done. My dear, your work is just starting. You must be on it. You must know what they're doing in class, know what is happening, know what is happening in therapy. If they're doing therapy at the school, what are the goals they're setting for your child? Or they're just putting your child there and it's so nice to say we're inclusive, but they actually haven't even adapted or accommodated the education for your child. So you have to be on it. Then you have to reinforce what they're doing in school or in therapy at home. So it's a kind of a jigsaw puzzle. In the same way, autism, the logo is a jigsaw. It's the same thing, that all these different moving parts that need to work together for the benefits and the betterment of your child.
There's somebody listening to you now saying that Down syndrome is for the rich, because as a poor person, if my child gets Down syndrome, I'd rather kill the child than go home because I don't have the resources. I don't have the resources to find a school to help my child.
Therapy.
I don't have the family support. We're just struggling. So it's something which folks can deal with. I can't deal with it.
Let me even add something culturally, where in fact there are a number of families that will say that sometimes fathers leave when they realize that the child has been diagnosed.
So when you talked about existential crisis earlier, I'm thinking, okay, there are people going through that right now and they're depressed and they don't have the options.
Yeah.
So what would you tell them?
So I'm very blessed. I come from, a well-off father, and we're doing okay as a family. But I can identify and I talk to people who are from low-income strata, and really it's about the will. Because even if you're financially able, are you in the geographic location? So some people have to have the money to move their entire family. What if you don't have that money? What if you're somewhere where you just don't have that access? But again, it comes to the will. If you love that child and you want to help them, you learn. You have to educate yourself about the diagnosis of your child. You have to learn the techniques of which you can implement in your home if you don't have capacity to pay, because it's expensive. When we came back, we were broke. 3 years in America and England, healthcare, we were broke. We relied on our community to assist us. But you have to put away your pride. If you want to help your child, you have to be humble. For me, it was, it was a real life lesson God taught me in this. It changed my life. You have to put that pride aside because you need the help for your child. So you have to build that community. it may not be your family. Your family may reject you and your child. Your husband may reject you, or your wife may reject you, or both parents may abandon the child, and you are adopting this child with Down syndrome. First of all, love. That's it. They can feel that. Once there's love, you can achieve it.
I love that. Let me pause you for a second because the caller holding. Toby, thanks for calling. You're live.
Good morning,
Good
Mariah.
morning.
First time caller.
Welcome to the show.
I have a Down syndrome baby.
Okay.
One of my twins was diagnosed like it was 3 months lost.
Okay.
So I took him for something, and they're like, he has Down syndrome. I said, no, God forbid. I was so depressed when I read about the stuff, and I was like, what things? How will he cope with the twins brother? But now I think with the twins brother, he's doing very much. And then I'm trying to learn so many things to help him. And it's going to be 3 months next month. The 2 of them are going to be 3 months next month. So with the help of their sister and the twins brother, is coping, is even trying.
That's 3 months.
So he's in school now. He's in school now, and
3
he's
months?
doing very well.
3 months.
3 years. That'll be 3
3
years.
3 years. I'll say the
next
school.
month.
3 years, okay. Okay.
And he just started school, 3 years. He just started this September.
Thank you very much, Toby. Let me let you help her because she's just 3 years. How many years have you done this?
9.
9 years. So are there things you like to give, some tips you like to give her in this 3-year stage?
Yes, I'd like to commend her, firstly. It's amazing that you have the twins, because there's one that's neurotypical and one that's Down syndrome. Siblings, the power of siblings is huge. Ugo is like, God gave me that child first because he knew the child that was coming. And so siblings in a family are what we find over the past few years of the foundation, speaking to people both internationally and here and families. Siblings are their teachers. Siblings are their example. Siblings are their protectors. And siblings offer them guidance. And so you have to be careful not to put too much on their siblings, right? Because you don't want to burden them. But you do have to make them aware of their responsibility, because at some point, we as parents will not be here.
Yes.
We won't be here. So our role is to make these children as independent as possible, but also make sure they have a community that's with them for life.
The caller made Mariah shocked when she was mistaking 3 months for 3 years. And I'm wondering, somebody has to compromise normal life to raise a special need child. Even the children we have that we say they don't, we give up something. There's one parent who has to give up something. You know, you mentioned how it affected you when you left your career and started raising kids. Let's discuss the important issue here. At what cost would you protect and care for this child? You know, is something going to give? Can you balance it? They say this is like that. Can you balance it with your normal career? Like, is it possible?
So it's extremely difficult. I think as I got older, I've become a little bit more traditional. Oh gosh, I don't even know what I'm going to say right now. But really, I think we have to speak truth to ourselves. Right? It's all well and good. You see all these Hollywood and Nollywood movies that says you can have it all. You know, you cannot have it all. Pick your heart. What is it you want? What are the outcomes? What do you need to do for that outcome? And you have to speak truth to yourself. I knew that even though people are offering me nice jobs to do all the trash reality show I used to do, it wasn't for me again, right? What are my priorities? It's been hard because it's been financially harder, and families that have children with disabilities, our spend is 30 to 50% more than the average family. Yet there's really no support, right? Even if you say you go to the bank and they have there's no product to support special needs families. There's no guidance in that. So you kind of left doing it on your own, but you pick what you can do. Unfortunately, you know, you do have to go to work. And some parents do have to go to work and still manage this. So it's about building that support for those children when you're at work, but you have to be clued in. It might mean dropping your social life, but I would say that it's something I've had to learn in the past year, because I don't want to die here, is that self-care is really important. Self-care, because if I'm not okay, the rest of my family is not okay, right? So I find that every day I need time for me. That time for me is workout. 6 days a week I work out. For me, that's my mental zone. I get out all my anger, I work out. But it's great for your body. But for me, it's that mental thing that just calms me down and focus. So you have to find space for yourself as a special needs parent, as a parent of a child with Down syndrome. And you have to insist on that, because we always are doing for everybody else, but we don't want to do for ourselves.
So you mentioned that you have run a foundation. How long has that foundation been?
So officially a year.
Okay.
Unofficially about 4 years.
All right.
So I came up with it like.
Okay. So sorry, let me just so I can finish the question. Then you can give you the stage. So I want you to tell us that, and then tell us the specific support that that foundation targets, for kids with Down syndrome.
Sure. So I always say that I'm just a mom, which I am, right? My life and career my career is for my life, My life has given me purpose, This child has given me purpose. And so everything is intertwined. The foundation, what we work on, is directly because of what is going on or what I've noticed from my own personal experience. So like I said, we're not the typical foundation. We have the books, so we do readings, we go out there, we advocate with the books and content. We have songs and animations on our YouTube channel. So schools actually use our Nigeria 36 States song to teach the states of Nigeria. Hopefully they don't make it 37 states. But it's also a cool way for teachers to initiate that dialogue, and what you find is some of the kids already know the characters, so it starts this discourse within the classroom, right? I don't want to preach at people. I want people to discover. That's one. Then, in line with an earlier question, and also my experience, are two things we're working on right now. One is the Black Child Down Syndrome Project. So we are collaborating with Miss Anne Harriman. So he was nominated for an Academy Award this year. He's Nigerian, and he's the first black photographer for the September issue of Vogue in the UK. And we're doing a project, we're collaborating with other people like me, but they're in the UK. And we're featuring 9 black children with Down syndrome, including my daughter, in a photography exhibition, and their parents in a documentary, because just to raise awareness about the importance of being seen.
Wow, love it.
Here, they were hidden. In the UK, it was only Oyibo. So we want to kind of highlight that. The other is something I think the both of you were touching on, is about growing up, that independence, right? Puberty is coming. Yeah. How do I teach my daughter about the changes that are going to happen to their body? How do I teach her how to take care of herself, keep herself clean? And then how do I keep her safe? Because UNICEF, I think last week, the day of the girl child, I don't know if you read that report, but that report was scary in what happens to girls in the sub-Saharan region. And that didn't even look at girls with intellectual disabilities. So if you look at the statistics for intellectual disabilities, women with intellectual disabilities and assault, there is 83%. Over half of that is multiple. We have to take it back to how do we educate? Yes, inclusive education, but it's education adapted for...
Are there success stories? Because sometimes when somebody has that Down syndrome situation, they're thinking, okay, are there people with Down syndrome that are married? Are there people with Down syndrome that have children? Is this hereditary? If I fall in love with a girl with Down syndrome, will we have children with Down syndrome? These are questions people are thinking in their head because they're confused. So do you have those answers, or you feel that it's not something that
nobody knows why Down syndrome happens. It's just something that happens. To this day, they don't know. It's not a disease. It's a chromosomal difference. So instead of 46 chromosomes, which most people are born with, you're born with 47, an extra one on the 21st pair, hence the medical name trisomy 21. And that's why the World Down Syndrome Day is March 21st, 3/21. I don't know, it went viral on social media about this Turkish dentist, or is it doctor, some time back, maybe last year. His father has Down syndrome, his mother is neurotypical. He's neurotypical and he's a doctor. So it kind of showed, oh wait, actually, people with Down syndrome can do anything.
Yeah.
Right now, I think in South America, there's a lawyer with Down syndrome. In the US, Miss Teen USA is a young lady with Down syndrome. One of the highest Olympic medalists is a lady with Down syndrome. So it's really about, unfortunately, we are the ones that place the limitations on them. Because if we put that work in them, they will find their gift. They will fly.
Let me have the last question.
Okay, the last question. I'm waiting. I wanted to ask about Ugo, her brother. You know, you talked about their siblings also being like their guide. But, you know, you talk about the mother, the self-care that she gets. Does he get, is there any point where he feels overwhelmed by what's happening? And what care does he get for himself? In such a way also that he doesn't feel guilty, but that you recognize that he must have some feelings, and how do you help him?
Most definitely. I wouldn't say necessarily he gets overwhelmed, but sometimes he feels that she takes all the attention out of the room.
Okay.
Right? And he's a fine boy. But he is also just the sweetest person, kindest heart. If he sees someone struggling, he goes to help. That's his immediate instinct. We make separate time, me and him, to be together. It's important that he has his own QT, quality time, separate from his siblings. So we go and do our own thing. We spend our own time. I make sure I invest my personal time more in him than Simone, because she has a number of people that help her out, including...
Let's talk about your husband, his father. Or
Finest is his nickname.
Let's talk about your husband for a second, because a lot of Nigerian men would not stay in that situation, or they get confused and they just choose to
They don't even help. They
don't even help. Or they go, let's keep the baby. Okay, that's your problem. I'm not, you know. So how did he come to terms with it, and how is he supporting? Maybe some men are listening to you right now and think, okay, maybe I can help my wife in this way. So what does he do, and how does he support you?
I think it's important because the dialogue is often that, the man will run.
Yeah.
So he's a testimony in that not all men run. And not only that, not all men don't do nothing and just expect you to do. He's very active in it. His journey has been very different. I married my best friend, and that really helps. So once all the lovey-dovey goes, at the end of the day, we are mates. He's like my guy. Yeah, exactly. And plus, he's 6'4.5" and really good looking. He's gonna hate that I'm saying this all now, but he was always there.
Yeah.
He has always been supportive. He doesn't always understand that we have to go out and talk, but he gets it. Last week, when my daughter was on your sister's show, Wake Up Nigeria, I asked his permission because I didn't want to assume, right? And he was willing, because not that he was happy, he was uncomfortable with it, but he understood the work that has to be done and the importance of her being seen. His journey has been different. It's been quieter. And it's harder for men to get support because there are less safe spaces for them to speak. I am very lucky to, because of the advocacy, have met other very active fathers and been able to link him with them. Yeah, so for the first time, he was able to talk to another father about his journey. And it was only very recently that he said, you know what, I think I'm open to speaking about this. I'm willing to speak. He's been supportive all the way through. She's got him wrapped around his her
Little finger.
Only imagine.
You know, the way she looks and everything. But he has
kids
been
you
the
have?
most wonderful. I have two.
Just two.
He has, but it's 3 altogether. His first is in America with her mother.
So thank you so much, Tonye.
Thanks for
being here.
having me.
we're wishing you all the best, and your daughter and your son, and your entire family. Well done. And hopefully, we're looking forward to the Vogue.
Yeah.
Please
A
send us
big
pictures.
deal.
We'd love to post it.
we will be launching that in the UK at a gallery called Hope 93. Aki Abiola has given us his gallery. And you can find us, Simone's Oasis, on all social media. Our new website is coming up soon. And you can support us from the website as well once it's
Your
up.
husband on YouTube.
Thank you very much. And that's all we can take on today's show. Hope you learned a few things as we have. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye.